welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. Today we are going to be talking about the new Hermes blushes. I have all 8 of the shades that are available here in the United States. There is a 9th shade that is an Asia exclusive, and it's also available in Canada. So that one I don't have, but I do have the other 8. And we're going to talk a little bit about these blushes. I have cheek swatches, and then we're also going to be doing a ton of different comparisons. So stay tuned. So let's start off with the packaging. So the particular blush in here does not match this particular box. I just grabbed one randomly, but you can see that the blushes come with kind of this peek-through window where you can see the orange box inside. The paper for this box is untreated, made from recycled fibers, and it is recyclable. The blush itself is 6 grams or 0.21 ounces. And when you open this up, you have an Hermes box. So you can see this is the part that will face the front, and then you have the Hermes logo on the other side. This is a push-through box. And then here is the compact. So this is plastic. It's a plastic compact. It's lightweight. It's meant to be something easy to carry with you on the go, which is why they went with plastic. And at first, I wasn't upset that they used plastic, but this one kind of feels like it might scratch easily. I have to say I've had them for a week now and I haven't had any scratches or anything yet. So far so good. But we do have the Hermes logo here. This kind of has like that brushed brass kind of texture to it. And what you saw fall out is actually just a piece of plastic. You can see it's got a little cut out here at the top. This is how it comes on the compact. And the mirror and the blush are both off center here. So the blush is made in Italy. So while I'm going over additional details and information on these blushes, I'm going to be sharing with you some cheek swatches that I took of all 8 of these shades. They are in numerical order. And what I did was I wore the Koh Gen Do Aqua foundation in 002 for each swatch. And on my right side, I used the Hermes blush brush. This is dyed goat hair, but it's not like the higher quality, super soft goat hair. It's average. It doesn't feel, it's rougher than a Sonia G dyed goat hair brush, but it's not super rough in my opinion. And it's just a bit stiffer, which does help get more pigmentation out of the blushes. So on the right side, I apply the blush in 3 layers. So 3 dips in the pan with this brush. And then on my left side, I used the Sonia G Cheek Pro, which is also dyed goat hair, but this is Psycho goat hair, which is a little bit softer. So this is going to be softer on the cheek, but you can see that there is going to be a difference in application because of that softness and the shape of the brushes as well. I already have a video up on the Hermes blush brush. If you would like more information on that, we're not going to be talking about that in particular today. But I just wanted to show you the difference in pigmentation levels that you get with different brushes. So for each shade, I completely cleaned my whole cheek area and removed the makeup, reapplied the foundation every time, and let it kind of sit for a couple minutes before applying the blush so that everything would be the same between each condition. And of course I did, clean the brushes on a dry cloth in between each shade so that there was no, residue or any color interference. So without further ado, let's go ahead and share those swatches while I give you more details on these products. So as I mentioned, the blushes are made in Italy. If you go to the Hermes website, it does say made in France on the blush page, but I believe it's just the compact that was made in France and the actual formula is made in Italy. So just something to note there. And according to Hermes, this is a blush with a semi-matte finish, embossed with texture resembling silk twill, a fine, silky, long-lasting powder for a luminous, radiant complexion. At once ethereal and compact, its ultra-light, pigmented texture allows color intensity to be tailored as desired, softened or asserted from the most natural to the most sophisticated finish. This long-lasting powder clings to the skin with the first touch. Rose Hermes Silky Blush can be refilled by simply removing and replacing its powder pan. Refills are sold separately. With its round case and off-center mirror, this disc of white and gold light designed by Pierre Hardy is distinctive for its lightness, as it was conceived for use on the go. Slipped inside its orange box, this is a pure Hermes object. With regards to the formula, the blush combines mineral powder with vitamin E for its antioxidant properties and has a scent created by house perfumer Christine Nagel that blends notes of arnica, sandalwood, and green tea. The majority of that information came directly from the Hermes website, and the fragrance information actually came from a news article that I saw in regards to these blushes. So each blush retails for $77 US, but refills are available at $48 US. So if you didn't want to splurge and spend the whole $77 to get the blush in the compact, you could start off with refills. Now, one thing to note about the refills, these are not magnetic pans. The compacts that they come in are not magnetic either. These pans are actually glued in to the compact. So if you are purchasing just the refills and you have every intention of putting them in a magnetic palette, you are going to have to essentially use magnetic stickers in order to adhere them to that palette. So just something to note there. And if you haven't already checked out Just Glow Firefly's video on the refill situation, I will leave that linked down below, but definitely check it out because she did purchase some refills and she has, kind of looked at how to replace them, how to pop things out and so forth. It's a little bit messier than anticipated. I have to say that it's kind of a disappointing feature of these particular blushes. Hermes did such a great job with the refill capability of the lipsticks and the lip enhancers and so forth. But unfortunately with these, they could have made it a lot easier just using magnetic palettes and magnetic pans and letting you switch things back and forth. But they didn't do that. So I do find that to be a little disappointing. That being said, I personally did not purchase any of the refills. So I, am not going to be the best person to ask about this situation. Now, as you can see from the cheek swatches, the two brushes do apply the product a little bit differently. Essentially, with both brushes and just one layer of blush, you're going to get a soft wash of color for the most part. With some of the more pigmented shades like Rose Feu, you still have to be a little bit more delicate with the first layer if you have fair skin like I do. But one thing to note, as we are graduating from 1 to 2 to 3 layers, you can see the depth of color increase, and you can see that the stiffer haired brush, which is the Hermes blush brush, actually will deposit color more strongly than the softer Sonia G brush. So just something to note, if you are not getting the pigmentation level that you desire, adjust your brush, try a different one. If you want something softer, go with something softer and fluffier. And if you want more intense color, go with a stiffer brush. It doesn't necessarily have to be, an angled cheek brush like this Hermes blush brush, but you want something with stiffer, firmer hairs that will grab onto the color a little bit better. Now, as for my thoughts on these blushes, when you open them up, you will have a strong fragrance smell. I feel as though the level of intensity is similar to a Chanel blush. So it's definitely a different scent from Chanel, but the level of intensity of the fragrance seems to be comparable in my opinion. So it's on the fairly strong side. And as I mentioned before, it has notes of arnica, sandalwood, and green tea. To me, being somebody who is not a nose in any way, it has kind of like a light, fresh floral fragrance. It's just there's a lot of it. So when I open it, it's not that it's a heavy fragrance. It's just that there is a lot of fragrance, if that makes sense. Now, that being said, it doesn't really bother me. So I haven't had any issues putting it on. People who are sensitive to fragrance, I'm sure, will note that this is very strong though. In regards to the actual formula texture and so forth, I feel that this formula is very nice. It goes on smoothly. The formula is consistent amongst all of the shades, so I have not had any issues with certain colors being a little bit patchier or drier than others. They all seem to be very silky smooth. They go on nicely, and the color is definitely buildable. As you have seen from the cheek swatches, with one swipe of color, you're going to get a light wash of color. and that intensity builds. I went up to 3 layers, but you can go even further than that. So all of these blushes can be built up to the color that you see in the pan. Now, as for the texture of this formula, I find it to be very silky. It's definitely a powder formula. You may notice some powder kick up when you dip your brush into the pan, but it's not one of those super powdery formulas that gets everywhere either. The pigment is really easy to pick up on a brush. It's also very easy to lay down. So I am really enjoying this formula a lot. So I hope all of those swatches were helpful. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to swatch all of these shades on my arms, and then we're going to be doing some comparison swatches. So I'm going to compare these shades to, different blushes that I have in my collection, but we're also going to take a look at the blushes that have the same name as a lipstick as well. So I don't have all of them, but the ones I have, we're going to take a look at those. So we're going to start off by swatching all 8 of the blushes just straight up next to each other. And this first shade here is number 19, Rose Apricot. And Hermes describes this shade as a velvety orange pink, like a ripe apricot in a ray of sunlight. Next, we have number 23, Rose Blush. And this is described as a fresh pink blended with coral for a healthy glow. And you can see that this shade has a little brightness peeking through to it. It's almost, I want to say neon, not neon like glow in the dark, but that like vibrancy that you get from a neon shade. You have some undertones that kind of peek through and give it that brightness, if that makes sense. Next, we have 28, Rose Plume. And Rose Plume is described as a soft and delicate pink, a misty watercolor refreshed with a subtle hint of blue. Next, we have 32, Rose Palmette. And Rose Palmette is described as a bright, radiant pink, evoking the rosy-cheeked glow of emotion. Number 45, Rose Ombre. And Rose Ombre is a subtle, celestial pink in, I'm not sure how to say this, chiaroscuro, between shade and color. And next, 49, Rose Tan. This is a lightly tanned and golden pink, like skin warmed by the sun. 54, Rose Nuit. And Rose Nuit is a deep and mysterious pink illuminated by a touch of moonlight. And last up, 61, Rose Feu. And Rose Feu says purple hibiscus, fiery, intense, illuminated with a hint of carmine. So let's just take a look at all of these. So again, we have 19, Rose Apricot, then 23, Rose Blush, 28, Rose Plume, 32, Rose Palmette, 45, Rose Ombre, 49, Rose Tan, 54, Rose Nuit, and 61, Rose Feu. So before we move into blush comparisons, we're going to take a quick look at the lipsticks that match the blush shade name. So I do have 3 of those. And on my lips right now, I have Rose Nuit, which is actually a matte lipstick, but I have it over some residual lip balm, so it's not that matte on me. But one thing I wanted to share with you is the numbers. Hermes kept them consistent. So if you have a matching shade name in a lipstick and a blush, they also share the same number. So we have number 54 for the lipstick as well as for the blush. So this is 54 Rose Nuit in the lipstick. And here is the blush in Rose Nuit. So you can see that they're not going to be an exact match, but they do go nicely together and they have similar undertones. Next we have 45 Rose Ombre, which is a satin shade. So here is the Rose Ombre blush. And again, they're not going to be a match, but they have a similar vibe and tones. Obviously, the lipsticks are much more intense for all of these shades. And this is 32 Rose Pommet. This is a satin lipstick. So these three lipsticks were actually out in the fall. I believe they were part of the fall 2020 collection. So they were limited edition. You can still find them around, but they are not part of the permanent line. So here's the Rose Pommet blush. All right, and then last up, this here is the Hermes Lip Enhancer in Rose Tan. So it's not one of the lipsticks, but I do want to show you how this compares to the Rose Tan blush. So Rose Tan is number 49, and you can see that the lip enhancer and the blush are very different from each other. So we are going to move on to comparisons in just a second, but I just wanted to show you some of these blushes again, because one of the things that I think is hard to get across in photos and probably even in this video is the vibrancy that comes through each of these shades. So it's almost as if these shades have like a sheer base to them, or maybe even like something bright in there. So it's allowing the brightness of the pigments to kind of shine through. So when you're talking about like a glow from within, it's sort of as though these blush shades have accomplished that. So again, up here we have Rose Apricot, which is a velvety orange pink according to Hermes, and I'd say that's pretty accurate. It's more orange than pink. I would definitely say it's more of a soft pumpkin shade in my opinion. Then we have Rose Blush here, which is going to be a coral pink. And again, you've got that like vibrancy to it, and that vibrancy, it's almost like a bright orange coming through underneath. And then we have Rose Plume. This is going to be a soft, bright pink. It's cooler in tone than the other shades we've seen so far. And it's going to give you that bright pop of pink on your face, but it's delicate, it's soft, it's not going to be overpowering. It's not like a bubblegum pink, it's more like a petal pink. And then we have Rose Pommet, which is going to be warmer in tone. And this one here, you know, it's a pretty neutral pink. It's a neutral bright rose shade. It's really gorgeous. And then we have Rose Ombre, which is going to have more of those nude tones to it. So it's almost like one of those nude pink lipsticks that you pick up that have a little bit of those browner tones underneath as well. Rose Tan, they describe this as a lightly tan and golden pink. I personally don't really see any pink. I can wear this shade as a bronzer. It is more of a yellowish golden shade to me. And then we have Rose Nuit, which is going to be like a rosy plum kind of shade, and it's got some like deeper nuances in it. Rose Feu is going to be more of a brick red, but it's brighter than brick. So brick has like heavier, you know, browner tones in it. This does have a touch of it, but it's like they added like a dab of it and it's kind of mixed in. So it's still brighter overall, fresher overall. And I think all of the shades, you know, they did a really great job curating these shades. I'm very happy with all 8 of these colors. So moving on to comparisons, we're going to take a look at the Sisley Lafido blushes first. These are the new formula. These have more of a creamier gel-like consistency. This is number 1, Pink Peony. I'm going to put this one right here because it is going to be closest to the Rose Plume shade. So you can see that they both have a brightness. The Sisley is going to be even brighter and cooler in tone. It's actually, the Sisley is actually a little bit more bubblegummy than the Rose Plume. The Rose Plume has a little bit more warmth on it, and it looks a little bit more like a flower petal, in my opinion. Next, we have number 2, Rosy Fuchsia. This one really doesn't go with any of these blushes, so I'm just going to put this right up here because I know some people did want to see this shade, but you can see that it's going to be very different from anything that Hermes is offering. It's definitely much brighter, and it's got those cooler blue undertones, you know, like you would see in some of the shades, kind of like what you would see in Rose Nuit and what you would see in the Rose Plume, but it's much brighter and those tones are much cooler and more pronounced in the Sisley. Next, we have the Coral shade, number 3 from Sisley. And we're gonna put this one right here. This is the Rose Blush from Hermes, and then we have the coral. You can see that the coral from Sicily is going to be pinker or redder than the coral in the Hermes collection. I'm gonna swatch it down here as well so you can just see the comparison. So let's just put it down here. And you can see that it's almost like a more orange version of the Rose Feu. It's a little bit brighter and cooler than Rose Feu, but the intensity level is going to be much more similar there. Next from Sicily, we have number 4, Golden Rose. Now, this one is, again, going to be very different from anything here because it's actually a metallic shade. And you can see it's going to have pink and gold reflect here. So the undertones in the pink are going to be similar to this one here, which is the Rose Blush, but it's got all of that gold reflect that is much more pronounced. So I feel like they're not really all that similar on the cheek because the Sicily and Golden Rose is going to have a much more metallic look. You see a lot more of that gold reflect when you have it on than, obviously that's missing in this more matte formula. It's a matte luminous formula in the Hermes. And last up, we have number 5 from Sicily, Rosewood. They do have a 6th shade, but it's a highlight, so we are not going to swatch that. We're going to put Rosewood right here, right in between Rose Nuit and Rose Feu. And you can see here that it is going to be plummier. It's a very, very beautiful shade. This is one of my favorite blush shades, but you can see that it doesn't really have a good match in the Hermes. These two will be your closest. It's almost like a mix of the Rose Feu and the Rose Nuit. Next, for comparisons, we're going to be going through the Chantecaille Philanthropy cheek shades. This first one here is Grace, and it's the one with the sea turtle. And this is going to be a soft shade here. We're going to put this one right here along the side here. It's going to be closest to Rose Blush, but you can see it's a little bit more nude than Rose Blush. Rose Blush from Hermes has just the slightest bit more of a brighter orange mixed in there than Grace. This is the Chantecaille Bliss shade, and this one again is not really going to go super well with any of these, but this is going to be our closest match, even though it is a lot deeper here. This is the Rose Ombre, so you can see that Bliss is going to be much softer. It's got a little bit more pink in it, but it is going to be the closest in tone. Next, we have Smitten, or the Elephant shade, and we're going to go ahead and put that one right here. So we can compare that with Rose Blush. You can see that that is going to be much more orange in Smitten. And next we have Laughter, or Coral. So let's put this one right here so we can kind of compare here. So you can see that this one, even though it's called Coral, it's much more red. It doesn't really go with the more corally Hermes shades. We're going to move it down here. So it's almost like a softer version of Rose Feu. Laughter definitely has a little bit more pink in it, whereas Rose Feu has a little bit more of that brick red tone to it. But the Chantecaille shade is definitely a lot softer in color and pigmentation, but they do have similar tones. Next, we have Joy, or Wild Horse. We're going to put this one right here. So this is the Rose Nuit shade right here. And you can see that Joy is going to be brighter. Let's try it with Rose Palmette. So here's Rose Palmette, which is warmer. Here's Joy. And then this shade here is going to be Rose Plume, which is going to be softer. And next we have Emotion, or the Bee. And I feel like this area is getting a little bit busy, so we're going to put this down here. And I'm going to re-swatch Rose Blush. So here is Hermes Rose Blush versus Chantecaille Emotion, and you can see that they are going to be fairly similar in color. Just to pair that with Rose Apricot, number 19, we'll put that one right above. So you've got the Chantecaille shade kind of sandwiched between. But you can see that there are more brownish tones. It's almost more of a burnt pumpkin in comparison with the Emotion shade here and the Rose Blush. All right, so these are going to be some comparisons with Sisley and Chantecaille, and I'm going to wash my arm now, and then we're going to swatch some more shades. I'll be right back. Okay, so we are going to do more swatch comparisons. I just re-swatched all 8 of the Hermes shades. They are in the same order from before. So we have Rose Apricot, Rose Blush, Rose Plume, Rose Palmette, Rose Ombre, Rose Tan, Rose Nuit, and Rose Feu. We're going to start with the Givenchy Prisma blush, and I'm just swatching the blush shade here. This is number 6, Romantica, and you can see here that it's got a little bit of those plum tones to it. So we're going to put that here with Rose Nuit, and you can see that they are going to be, you know, pretty similar, but the Givenchy is going to be a little bit cooler, slightly plummier. And then we have the Spice blush. So this is number 3 from Givenchy, and this one here you can see is going to be more of that like brighter coral shade. We're going to put that here with Rose Blush. And then there's also this lighter pink shade here. So let's put this one with Rose Plume. I mean, you can see that Givenchy is much cooler. And I'm going to mix the 2 of those together. So these are the 2 shades mixed together. We'll just put them right there. You can see that it really doesn't match with any of those, but very pretty shade. Next, we have the Chantecaille. This is the Radiant Chic Cheek and Highlight Duo in Coral. This is the one with the manta ray on top. And we're gonna go into this coral shade here. And we're gonna put this one right here along the side. You can see it's much more vibrant than Rose Blush or Rose Apricot, and the other shades are not really all that corally. So this actually goes better with the Givenchy Spice, which is going to be a little bit pinker. And then we have the Chantecaille Duo with the Rose shade with the whale shark on it. And we're going to look at this one with Rose Palmette in particular. So let's put that right here between Plume and Palmette. You can see that it is going to be a brighter pink still. It's cooler in tone. And this is Tom Ford number 1, Frantic Pink. And let's take a look at this one. And let's see, we're going to put this one right here by Rose Ombre. You can see that Frantic Pink has a little bit more of a peachy vibe to it though. So I'm gonna compare that up here with Rose Blush as well. So here is Frantic Pink. Oh, it'll fall out there. Okay, and here's Rose Blush again. You can see that it's gonna be brighter than Frantic Pink. And unfortunately, Frantic Pink is much more pink than, much more peach than any of these rosier shades here. Moving on, we have the Wayne Goss. This is the Blush Peony, and we're going to look at the pink shade here, which is called Sweetened, and that's it here. So we're going to put this over here to look at Rose Palmette, and again, you can see that this is actually going to be cooler in tone than Rose Palmette. And it doesn't quite go with Rose Nuit either, which has a little bit more of a more nude base and a little bit more plum in it. Next, we're going to take a look at one of the Suku blushes. This is number 125, and we're going to look at the side with the blush. This is going to be more of an orangey shade. Let's put this right here so we can look at Apricot and Blush. And you can see that it's actually going to be closer to Apricot, but it's a little bit lighter in color. It's a little bit more orange than golden. Next, we have the Suku 124 blush, and let's take a look at that with Rose Plume. So I'm going to swatch Rose Plume again down here. So here is Rose Plume, and you can see that they're both very soft, but the Suku is going to be cooler tone. It's almost got a little bit of a lavender vibe to it in comparison. And this is the Suku 123. And we're gonna compare this one with Rose Tan here. And you can see that it's gonna be a lot more yellow in the Suku. So let's take a look. Here's Rose Apricot. Here's this. You can see that they're not going to match either. It's still closer with Rose Tan. And here is 122. And we're going to bring that down here to Rose Nuit. And this is going to be the closest match to Rose Nuit from these Sukus. So you can see that they are pretty similar. The Suku is definitely going to be much softer, less pigmented, and you can see here that the tone is slightly different. It's a little bit cooler, a little bit less red. And next we have the Suku 04. This is from the regular line, whereas the other ones were all from the limited edition collections. We're going to put this one down here with Rose Feu. And this is one of my favorite blushes of all. So you can see that here with Rose Feu has a little bit more red in it. And then here's the Rose Nuit, which has more pink, but it's still going to be closest to Rose Feu. Okay, so I reapplied the swatches one more time, and now we're going to move on to Chanel. So this is number 80, Jersey, and this is the old formula. We're going to put this over here with Rose Tan, and you can see Rose Tan is going to be much more yellow. This shade here is Rose Ombre. So it's going to actually be a little bit closer to Jersey. And next we have Rose Petal. We'll stick that one right here. Yeah, it's actually got more rose in it. Let's check that down over here with Rose Nuit. And we'll just put that right there. So Rose Petal from Chanel, Rose Nuit from Hermes. Okay, now here is Rose Ruben, which we are going to put over here with Rose Palmette. You can see that Rose Ruben is going to have a lot more plum, purpley tones to it, but it's definitely still not a match for Rose Nuit. Okay, next we have Tweed Pink. We're going to put this one over here with Rose Plume. Now, Tweed Pink, I have a hard time getting any color from it. So personally, I think it doesn't really go with anything, but it is a similar tone to Rose Plume, but you're going to get a lot more pigment from the Hermes shade. Next, we have Alizan, number 260. I'm going to put this one down here with Rose Tan, and you can see it's going to be a lot more brown, less golden. Okay, number 71, Malice. And we're going to put that up here with Rose Blush. You can see that Malice is going to be pinker. We're going to move it down here to Palmette as well. So here's Malice. This one here is Palmette. Let's just go here down the side. And you can see Malice has a bit more red in it than Palmette. And just in comparison, so we got Palmette, Malice. This one here is going to be Rose Nuit and Rose Feu. Fuchsia Rose, number 430. And this one's not really going to have like a great match per se. The closest is, I mean, you can see how much more red that is than any of these ones here for Hermes. And this one here is number 02, Rose Bronze. And we're going to take a look at this one here with Rose Tan. You can see that it's not really going to go with Rose Tan. We're also going to look at it. I mean, here's Nuit, here is Rose Feu. And then we're also going to look at this up here at the top. So Rose Bronze is here. And in comparison, this one here is Rose Apricot, Rose Blush, then we have Rose Plume, Palmette, Ombre. So let's put this one with Ombre. You can kind of see it. Let's add a little bit more here. So here's Ombre with Malice. Those are going to be the closest. This one here is Ombre, sorry. So Ombre and Malice. Let's swatch those two side by side. So This one here is Chanel Malice. Sorry, it's like clumpy. And this one here is Rose Ombre. So you can see that Rose Ombre is going to be a little bit rosier, but they are pretty close. Next, we have Rose Initial number 72. And let's put this one here, and we're going to pair this with Palmette. So here's Palmette, which is going to be warmer in tone. And then here is Nude. So you can see that Nude is going to be a little bit cooler in tone than Palmette, but it doesn't have that same brightness that you get. Next, we have 330 Rose Pétillant. And this one, let's put this right up here at the top. And again, this is going to have a little bit more of that brighter pink. So let's put that one with, we'll move it down here to Palmette as well, and we'll also compare Rose Plume with that. So here it is. This is Rose Pétillant, and this is Palmette from Hermes. So again, we've got Rose Pétillant. This one here is Rose Plume. So you can see that the tones are going to be different. This one is more petal pink. This one has a little bit more brightness to it. Not brightness per se, but depth of color essentially. And then here, this is number 64, Pink Explosion. We're gonna put this one right here. This is Palmette Pink Explosion. Next, we've got the Chanel Fleur de Printemps. This is the coral shade from there. We're gonna put this one right here. And this is gonna be closest to Rose Blush, which is right here. But it's gonna have a little bit more pink or red to it. You can see that Rose Blush has more orange. And this is Les Chaînes de Chanel. We're going to compare with those. So we're gonna put this one right here. And you can see Rose Tan is definitely more yellow. And then over here, we've got Rose Feu and Rose Nude. And you can see that doesn't really go with any of the other shades from Hermes. Okay, and then I just purchased these. So these are the Sicily Orchidee blushes. So I'm gonna swatch the areas here where I'm not getting imprinting, especially since the imprinting doesn't carry through all the way. So let's go ahead and swatch these. So this one here is number 3, the Coral. And we're going to put this over here now. Let me just switch arms. So here's the Sicily Coral Aqua blush, or Coral in the Orchidee blush. You can see these are highlighting blushes, so they're meant to be very soft and light. So this is Hermes in Rose Blush. This is the Orchidee blush in number 1. This is the original. So let's put that one right here. And we're going to compare that with Apricot and Tan. So here is Hermes in Apricot, which you can see is going to be much more orange. And here is Rose Tan, which is going to be a much better match for the original, but you can see that it is going to be slightly different. So the Sicily in number 1 is a little bit more brown than Rose Tan, but they're very close. And this is going to be the Sicily in number 2, Rosé. And again, this one's going to be very soft and light. Okay, and then this is Rose Plume from Hermes. So you can see the tones of them are a little different. The Sicily's a little bit cooler, but the biggest difference is just that these Orchidee blushes are a highlighting blush, and they're going to be a very soft sheer wash of color in comparison. So when I was doing all of the comparisons, I forgot to compare it to the By Terry blushes. This one here is number 1, Platonic Blonde, and I think these are discontinued. I don't see them around anymore, even though I never saw an official discontinuation notice. But this one here is number 4, Nude Dance. So let me just compare those. I'm gonna look at 23 Rose Blush from Hermes, which you can see is much brighter. Here is number 19 Rose Apricot, which you can see is going to be a little bit more brown. So it's kind of in the middle between those. So for Nude Dance, let's look at number 45, Rose Ombre. And number 54, Rose Nuit. Let's put this one right here. That one's gonna be a little closer. And this one's gonna be deeper, but this is number 61, Rose Feu. And this just might have a more similar undertone. It does, but you can see that the Hermes has more red versus more of a rose shade in the By Terry. So I hope all of those comparisons were helpful. That's the majority of my blush collection. So, I mean, I have a few others that just definitely don't, match, but this was the majority of my blush collection. So now you've kind of seen that as well. So I hope that was helpful, and hopefully you found something that either fits already in your collection, or you found a shade that maybe you are interested in purchasing because you don't have anything similar. So final thoughts on these blushes. I personally really like them. I think they have a great texture. They're very silky, they're soft. They actually are a lot more pigmented than everybody was kind of thinking before they were released, because all of those initial swatches were just so incredibly light and sheer. They looked like they were going to be barely there kind of colors, but at least on me, these can go pretty deep. So you can definitely build up to the color level in the pan. So I think they are well pigmented. The pigment comes up easily. It's a silky powder blush, so there's no problems getting it up. None of my blushes have started developing hard pan. They're not as firmly pressed into the pans as the Chanel blushes. So it's really easy to get the pigment up and to disperse it on the face as well. Now, are these my absolute favorite blushes ever? No, they are not. Right now, my absolute favorite are still the new Sisley Lafido blushes. I think that formula is incredible, and they kind of melt into your skin, so it looks like it's a natural color coming through. These ones here, I think they have a beautiful matte luminous finish, and they give a great texture. I don't think they have any issues like accentuating any like fine lines or anything on the face. They go on smoothly and evenly, which I have to say, I am very happy with the formula. I think it's a really nice formula. Again, these do have a fragrance. It is a lot of fragrance, but when I'm opening this versus I'm opening the Chanel blushes, it's a pretty similar level of fragrance, but I feel like the Chanel fragrance is a stronger, deeper scent, if that makes sense. So this one's a little bit lighter, probably those green tea notes in there or something make it a little lighter and fresher, but they are going to be similar. So if Chanel blushes smell too strongly for you, the Hermes blushes will be as well. And after that, I think it's just a matter of personal taste in fragrance. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about which one's my favorite and, what's my favorite formula. I have answered that the Sisley Lafido blush is my favorite formula, but this, I have to say, is going to rank up there. I don't really have them ranked right now. Maybe I'll be able to rank them later. I need to use everything a little bit more, but these are definitely going to be up there in my top favorites because I think the formula really just goes on so smoothly. I know I'm going to get a question about, how these compare to the new Chanel formula. And, for me, Chanel blushes, I've always enjoyed them, but I've had issues with consistency with the Chanel blush formula in general. Some shades go on very lightly, some go on much more like they are in the pan. For example, like the Tweed Pink, that one, I know that's a special formula, but that one I can it doesn't really show up on me much. So, there have been inconsistencies. Some shades have been a little patchier than others and so forth. So I have to say that these are a little bit more consistent, and I know many people will probably disagree with me, but I like this Hermes formula better than the Chanel formula. So there is that. Favorite shade? I don't have a favorite shade at the moment, but I do have a few favorites. So I really like the Rose Plume, the Rose Ombre, the Rose Nuit, and the Rose Pommette, and the Rose Blush. Those are my general favorites. The other shades I also really like, but for my coloring, they're just ones I have to be a little bit more cautious with, and they'll go with certain looks. If I had to pick one favorite, I don't think I'm ready to do that quite yet, but I don't know. They're all beautiful depending on what you're looking for. So One of the things I do like about these blush shades in this range is the vibrancy of the colors, how, you know, none of them are really like a muted down shade per se, and it just has this like natural brightness to it. And honestly, they remind me of flowers. So they really do. So I personally really like these blushes. Are they worth $77? You know, again, that is a completely personal decision here. By comparison, you know, we've got a plastic compact from Hermes, and this holds 6 grams of product. We also have a plastic compact from Chanel and from Sicily, and these are 6 grams, and the Sicily are going to be 6.5 grams. So the Sicily blushes, these retail for $80. They're similarly priced to the Hermes then. The Chanel, these are only $45, so they are going to be cheaper than the Hermes and the Sicily. So, you know, it really just comes down to what you want to spend and what is worth it for you. I personally think that this is a really nice silky formula on the skin, and I really like the colors. Now, again, another option is to go for the refills and use some magnetic stickers, stick it in a pan. So that's another option. The refills, again, retail for $48 US. I personally am very happy to have these in all 8 of these shades, and I am really enjoying these. So I have to give these a thumbs up personally. And you know, they are pricey, but it's all going to depend on what you want and what you want to spend your money on. So I can't say that they're totally worth it or that they're not worth it, because it really depends on what you have in your collection and what your priorities are, not just with money, but I'm talking about like how your priorities are for blushes, like what you're looking for most. Is it like a specific shade? Is it how it appears on your cheek, or the type of finish, the fragrance? So all of those factors are just so personal that I don't think anybody can truly say whether a blush is worth it for somebody else. So I know that's kind of, you know, not really a true answer, but that's the best I can do. I personally am very happy with all 8 of these blush shades, and I really like the formulas, so I'm glad that I picked them up. And that sums up everything for this review. So I hope this was helpful. If you've picked any of these up already, I would love to know what your thoughts are on this formula and how you're enjoying these. And if you're interested in any, please let me know what shades you liked the best, because you know, there are definitely a lot of great shades here. Some of them are going to be more similar to things that you may have in your collection, whereas others, you know, might stand out a little bit more. I definitely noticed as I was doing all of these swatch comparisons that Rose Blush was one that seemed more similar to other things, and nothing quite matched it, but you know, it kind of had like a similar vibe, if that makes sense. So there are definitely some shades that seem a little bit more like there may be more dupable options out there. And last thing that I want to say is just that these blushes, performance-wise, you know, I've mentioned that they go on nicely. They're not patchy. The one thing I forgot to mention is that they really do last all day on my skin. So no issues with any fading or anything like that. They have held up really well throughout the day. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I hope to see you very soon. So have a great day and stay safe and healthy.